Good evening, members of council, ladies and gentlemen, staff. I see that we have quorum, and I call this regular meeting for the Town of Pelham Council for Tuesday, May 21st, 2013 to order. We will begin with an invocation led by Councillor Durley, followed by the singing of the national anthem led by our clerk, Ms. Bizzato. All rise.
Dear God, who has given us grace to make our common goals unto thee, and who does promise that when two or more are gathered unto thy name, you will grant their requests. Lord, we supplicate your blessing upon this assembly. Fulfill now, O Lord, the petitions of thy servants, as may be expected of them. Grant all in this council chambers the knowledge of trust, justice, and honor in all considerations placed before them. Provide us in this chamber, O Lord, strong minds and discerning spirit as we deliberate over the business of our town, that we move forever forward to ensure the town of Pelham continues to be a vibrant, caring, and creative community. May God bless all in our community and grant us in this chamber the wisdom, will, and generosity to guide the town of Pelham through the challenges and successes that lie ahead. Amen.
Amen.
Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love, in all thy sons command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north, strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you, Councillor Durley. Ms. Bizzato, thank you all. We begin with the approval of the agenda. It has been moved by Councillor Ribbiak, seconded by Councillor Kersey, that the agenda for the May 21st, 2013 regular meeting of council be adopted. Are there any additions to the agenda? Councillor Ribbiak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make two, if I can. I think there's a motion with regard to bylaw regarding Fenwick flagpole.
Thank you.
And second, I would like an opportunity to make a report as a councillor regarding the 160th birthday celebration in Fenwick.
Okay, thank you. We'll take those as two. I need a seconder for those. Councillor Durley. And to that amendment regarding the Fenwick flagpole designation bylaw, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Councillor Durley, you'll move that as well regarding a report for the 160th?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Of the village of Fenwick. And I'll call the question on that. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Are there any additional items? Any changes to the agenda? There being none, I call the question on the amended agenda. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried as amended. The next item is disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. Do any members have any conflicts of interest they need to disclose? There are none. Can that be noted, please, in the minutes? Hearing of presentations and delegations. We have one presentation, and this is by the Regional Action for Smoke-Free Outdoor Spaces. We have Jillian McDonald and Maria Brigantino. Good. She's nodding vigorously, so I did get that correct. So if you wouldn't mind joining us here at the lectern.
Good evening, Mayor and members of Council. Thank you so much for allowing us to join your meeting this evening. My name is Maria Brigantino. I'm the manager of the tobacco program at Niagara Region Public Health, and my colleague is Jillian McDonald, who's a health promoter with the tobacco program at Public Health. So we are here tonight to discuss smoke-free outdoor spaces. This is a regional bylaw that we have proposed, and we are conducting an extensive municipal consultation process and have been doing so from 2011 onward, and have met with staff here in Pelham. So the goal for tonight's presentation is to give you an overview of the bylaw inclusions, to talk about public consultations that were conducted across Niagara region and specifically here in Pelham, and to address your questions and provide information on next steps. So in terms of why this bylaw is so important, really what we're trying to achieve with this bylaw is we want to protect vulnerable populations in our community, like children and those who, and the community in general, from exposure to secondhand smoke. We know that these bylaws also provide positive role modeling for children. They also help people who are interested in quitting smoking or who have quit smoking and staying smoke-free, and they're good for the population in general. In Niagara, in our landscape, we do have municipalities currently that have bylaws that restrict smoking beyond the Smoke-Free Ontario Act. The Smoke-Free Ontario Act is provincial legislation that's enforced by Niagara region. We do employ tobacco control officers to enforce that legislation. And we heard from municipalities that they wanted the region to take leadership on coordinating a regional bylaw to reduce the patchwork of bylaws in the region and to have a more coordinated approach in terms of coverage for the entire municipality, as well as implementation and enforcement. So really what we're trying to achieve with this bylaw is enhanced protection and positive role modeling for young children, and to have a clear and consistent communication and approach across the region. So based on the feedback that we were receiving from municipalities and some public consultations that we conducted in 2011, we went to Regional Council in November of 2012 and requested that they approve a recommendation to create a regional bylaw that would prohibit smoking in outdoor public places on municipal and regional owned properties. So that would include properties that are owned, operated, or used by either the municipality or the region. So some of these properties would include parks, playgrounds, splash pads, bus shelters, beaches, trails. And at that time, Regional Council did endorse the recommendation. They were very explicit in that they wanted to ensure that roads, sidewalks, and right-of-ways in relation to any regional or municipal property were not included in the bylaw. And the other piece that was integral was that we continue to consult with municipalities so that we could create the bylaw, as well as create communication and implementation plans for bylaw rollout. So that has been integral. And it's been all of these factors together that really led us to go to Regional Council back in November of 2012 and make this recommendation moving forward.
So as Maria has mentioned, there are varying bylaws that already exist in Niagara that address smoking in outdoor settings. So Welland, West Lincoln, Grimsby, and Niagara Falls all have varying bylaws. Niagara Falls has the most comprehensive bylaw. It's almost been 2 years since they've implemented it. And smoking is prohibited on all city-owned parks, recreation facilities, bus shelters, and entrances to city-owned buildings. So in terms of existing smoke-free legislation in Ontario, as Maria mentioned, there is the Smoke-Free Ontario Act that the tobacco control officers enforce, and that protects children in outdoor spaces that contain day nurseries, primary and secondary schools, and the exterior of hospitals within 9 meters. But unfortunately, it doesn't protect children in high-use areas such as parks and playgrounds. So that's what we're really hoping that this regional bylaw will approach and address. So we did want to engage the public on this issue and really see, what type of level of support there is. Public Health went out to the community last summer and administered surveys. And we administered almost 2,000 surveys with Niagara residents, and we went to outdoor spaces that would potentially be affected by this bylaw. So we went to 60 locations in Niagara, various festivals and parks and sports fields, and really got feedback from the public on this issue. And what the survey results showed was public support is very strong, with 88% of Niagara residents that were surveyed indicated they really support smoking restrictions in outdoor settings, especially where children are at play. And in terms of Pelham residents, their support was actually quite a bit higher than this, over 90% of Pelham residents. It's also interesting to note that 94% of visitors that were surveyed had quite a strong level of support. 'Cause sometimes there's concern about tourists and that sort of thing. And Niagara Falls, of course, has been able to address that.
So one of the questions, the main questions that we've been getting as we've approached our Public Health and Social Services Committee, and as well with municipalities, is around implementation and enforcement and what this would look like. We know from other jurisdictions in Ontario, and there are 45 other jurisdictions that have similar bylaws to what we're proposing, that the amount of concern or complaint is actually less than what we project. What the concern can be. What has typically happened in other jurisdictions is that these types of bylaws end up being primarily socially enforced and adhered to by the majority of the public. And that there are going to be a minority of areas where there are going to be concerns, and we've got an enforcement plan to deal with that. So in terms of the bylaw, we have identified the tobacco control officers who are employed by the region as being primarily responsible for enforcement. Municipal bylaw officers would have jurisdiction to enforce the bylaw if there's capacity and support from the municipality. We would have a referral system put in place so that complaints could be shared between the region and the municipality and from members of general public. And we do have a tobacco hotline, an existing hotline that'll be used to receive questions and complaints and address any issues related to this. We know, though, that education is key. And if people are aware of the bylaw, then more people tend to comply with the bylaw. So our focus is going to be on an extensive education and communication plan for the first year with sustained efforts after that. And in that first year, we would be looking at issuing warnings for non-compliance, so they wouldn't have any monetary amounts to them. Then moving forward with enforcement. And one of the questions that we get is, what is a fine amount for a ticket? We are recommending $250. It's with applicable court fees, it's $305, and it's consistent with the Smoke Free Ontario Act and what's happened in other jurisdictions. However, we do expect compliance to be high generally, and then we expect to identify through complaints areas that we call hotspot areas that will need some more enforcement action, communication, and some targeted efforts. So in terms of next steps, we have gone to our Public Health and Social Services Committee with a recommended bylaw and report. They've asked that be shared through the regional clerk of each municipality for comment and feedback. And that comment and feedback is requested to be due back to the region by June 30th. So we're not asking for endorsement of the bylaw, but what we're asking for is your responses so that we can look at all of the feedback from municipalities and go forward to Public Health and Social Services Committee with another bylaw for their consideration. We do require a triple majority vote for this to become a regional bylaw, so that would mean that we need a majority of regional council to approve the bylaw, and then a majority of municipalities to approve the bylaw, and the majority of the municipalities also need to make up the majority of Niagara residents in general. Thank you.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, thank you very much. You went from describing that right to the end. So thank you very much for your presentation. I wonder if members of council have any questions for you regarding the presentation. Councillor Gurley and then Ribiak, I see.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm neither a smoker nor do I profess that smoking is a good thing. However, it's still legal for somebody to go into a corner store, purchase a package of cigarettes, and to use the cigarettes. So, I'm looking, and your statistics say that, 90% of Niagara residents support the bylaw to some extent to completely ban it. Is this not perhaps an overkill thing? Could it not be that we could be looking at something that will allow a smoker to participate or in this habit that they have that would be away from children that you say are susceptible? Because I look at every Thursday night, we have hundreds, sometimes thousands of people sitting in our backyard here watching music in the band shell, which is very successful, and we don't have any bylaw, and to my knowledge, I have not heard a complaint about somebody being offended by someone else having a cigarette, and we have tens of thousands of people at Summerfest, and I don't think we've ever heard of anything in that regard. So I'm just wondering, would it be easier to, or better to address something to say, let's control it rather than let's ban it? Again, it's a legal thing. If they make cigarettes illegal, then fine, but they are legal. People that smoke use their hard-earned money to buy it. They choose to use that in parks that their tax money pays for. Now you're going to tell them they can't do it? I have a bit of a concern in that. Maybe I'm small L liberal all to the world, but at the same token, some people need to be able to have some freedom in what they choose to do. And as I said, our examples here have not been any complaints about people smoking. So I'm just wondering, in your feedback from other people, have you received anything to say, let's not go for a total ban, let's look at some other measure that may be not quite so severe?
Thank you, Councillor. Ms. Bragantino?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So from a public health department standpoint, we also have the tobacco hotline, and so we hear from members of the public regularly about their complaints and concerns about going to parks and playing fields in some of these areas where they do feel there needs to be this level of protection. In terms of a complete ban, what we're trying to achieve with this bylaw is really to provide protection to vulnerable populations. And if you look at the areas that we listed, it really is predominantly about children in parks and playgrounds. So council felt, though, that we needed to ensure that we didn't include areas like sidewalks and right-of-ways and those sort of abutting areas. And so essentially, that is where folks who choose to have a cigarette would go and would be directed to go. So there is an area essentially for them to go. In our municipal consultations, there was discussion around designated smoking areas. That is something that has come up. It is difficult to manage designated smoking areas across the region because there isn't a consistent message approach. What we find from other areas where we have designated smoking areas is that there's confusion about where people can smoke, where they can't smoke. There ends up being enforcement challenges, communication challenges, additional costs related to signage. And so having a clear, consistent message tends to be the best approach.
Thank you. Councillor, is there anything further?
I do, but I'm going to let it go. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Ribbiak, then I had Councillor King.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. He so often does, Councillor Gurley has anticipated the direction of my question. My question was also with respect to the areas that were accepted by region from control. And I think you've indicated that paths and roadways and sidewalks and various things were excluded in order specifically to allow people a place to smoke, or was there some other reason why those areas would have been excluded?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So initially, members of council or Public Health and Social Services Committee did identify strongly that they wanted those areas. I think it was a mixed rationale. In further investigation, as we were developing the bylaw, what gives us the jurisdiction to develop the bylaw is the Municipal Act. And if you read the Municipal Act, we also don't have any jurisdiction over those areas. So it's sort of a twofold rationale as to why those areas have been exempt.
Thank you. Just for clarification, so it was also consideration of a lack of ability to enforce in those areas, kind of a recognition that there wasn't much you could do about it anyway, aside from allowing a place for people to smoke.
That's right.
Okay. I understand. Thank you very much. Mr.
Thank
Mayor.
you. Councillor King?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. You made mention to other jurisdictions and bylaws that they have in place with respect to public places. You did not make reference to those jurisdictions with respect to beaches, and I'm just wondering whether that bylaw in other jurisdictions is actually split between public places, public events, such as the concert that Councillor Durley refers to, versus a beach.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So there are overall over 70 jurisdictions that have bylaws. They all vary to a degree. There are other jurisdictions that do have beaches included in their bylaw, and if there's any additional information that members would like, we can forward those specific details on.
So that's not being contemplated, I guess, is the councillor's question. It's not being contemplated in this bylaw, beaches.
Beaches is included in this bylaw. If it's owned by the region or the municipality, then it would be included. Privately owned beaches wouldn't. The other areas that are not included that we typically get asked about is any property owned or operated by Niagara Parks Commission, as well as the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority. We've shared this information, but they would not be included within the bylaw.
Okay, Councillor?
If I may, Mr. Mayor, why would a property such as Long Beach not be included in this bylaw?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So at this point, we wanted to, we felt that there was a readiness and there was an ask for municipalities, for the region and the municipalities to take on this issue and to essentially make a bylaw restricting the jurisdiction that we have. And of course, we would want to work with either private landowners or organizations, and we, it is our intent to do that. But at this point, there is readiness or perceived readiness for the region and municipality to move forward first.
Okay, thank you.
I think it's, I guess the region didn't ask. I don't think, let me put it in this question. The region hasn't specifically asked the Conservation Authority, has it? As you're asking municipalities?
Through you, Mr.
You're gonna
Mayor,
help the councillor.
we've shared the report and the direction with these organizations and have left it up to them at this point for discussion.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Is that okay?
Thank you.
Councillor Kersey?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. You alluded to the fact that part of your enforcement, or a very important part of your enforcement, would be the educational component. Could you expand on that a little bit for us, please?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, so we will be looking at a communications strategy, signage, and looking at working with each municipality to target, residents of Pelham and across the region. What we are going to be looking at is progressive enforcement. We, as a region, don't have the capacity to be in all the locations, plus also enforce the Smoke-Free Ontario Act. So what we're looking at is a complaint-based system. So when we receive a complaint, we receive 3 complaints to a specific location, we will be attending that location, doing an inspection, and then for the first year, either providing that verbal education or a paper warning, and then after that year of communication and education, then we would be going to fines. The other thing that we're looking at doing is recruiting some students who essentially will be at community events to promote the bylaw, provide education, have that awareness, and those events would be, that we would attend, would be informed by staff here in Pelham.
As a follow-up, who's responsible for the costs that'll be incurred on the educational piece, on the signage, on the enforcement? And as a further part of that question, is there an expectation that the program will be self-supporting?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, so the region would be responsible for the costs incurred. The one request that we are making of municipalities is that we would produce the signage, and we are asking municipalities that they post the signage. So that would be the one cost. I guess the additional potential cost is if municipalities are interested in enforcing the bylaw, issuing tickets, that would be an additional cost incurred, but the region would be primarily responsible for that. We hope that this is sustainable, and what we found from other jurisdictions is that they've put a lot of efforts and funding into education and awareness, and then compliance tends to increase over time, and that's very similar to other smoking bylaws and legislation that we've had in place.
Thank you. Councillor, anything further? No. Thank you. I have a couple of questions. The Smoke-Free Ontario Act was put in by the province after a number of jurisdictions, including Niagara being a leader, had already put in smoking regulations. Do we see anything on the provincial front in that way for public spaces? Have you heard anything?
So to you, Mr. Mayor, and I certainly don't want to speak on behalf of the province, but there is similar to what happened between 97 and 2000 with bylaws that restricted indoor smoking. What's happening right now is that there's a groundswell of outdoor smoking bylaws, and what we've seen in the past is that once that groundswell happens, it tends to typically become part of provincial legislation. So that could be anticipated and is anticipated, but I certainly couldn't speak on behalf of.
Okay, but we haven't sort of
intention.
heard anything officially.
Nothing official or
of the
formal.
drafting. Okay, thank you. Councillor Durley, in his question, asked about different festivals. So he talked about Summerfest, and he spoke about Peace Park here on the Thursday night where we have the concerts and the farmers markets. It would seem to me that it would be akin to something that maybe Niagara Falls might see with some of their events. You know, you think of New Year's Eve, etc. What have they done? It's kind of a two-part question. So what have they done in their bylaw? You said there's some concerns about, I'll say, tourists. And is that expected to be emulated in this bylaw?
So to you, Mr. Mayor, so with Niagara Falls specifically, some of their events, major events like New Year's Eve, that's actually Niagara Parks Commission property.
Okay.
So that there's not that necessarily that impact to them. The one exemption that Niagara Falls does currently have and would like to continue to be supported is the exemption of the Scotiabank Convention Centre. So when you do review the bylaw, the region's bylaw at this point, you will see that exemption. The exemption essentially states that smoking is restricted to 3 designated smoking areas. This basically aligns with their bylaw that they currently have in place. It's our intention to work with the City of Niagara Falls and the Scotiabank Convention Centre to eliminate that bylaw in the future. But for the purposes of providing protection to residents and visitors at this time, it has been written into the current bylaw.
Have you heard anything from other municipalities with some, I'm thinking of the Flatwater or whatever in Welland, et cetera, regarding that? Grape and Wine Festival.
So through the Public Health and Social Services Committee, one of the questions that we were asked to review and provide some consideration and come back to was the exemption issue. And so when we did that, essentially the bylaw, any municipality can come forward with to make an exemption within the bylaw at any time. The bylaw under the Municipal Act does require there to be a triple majority vote. So whether it's to enact the bylaw or to make an exemption, it will require triple majority from the region and from the municipalities ongoing. So there's no exemption process that we can necessarily write into the bylaw that would negate that triple majority need. So municipalities at any time could also ask for an exemption, but it would need to go through that process. And then in this consultation process that we're asking for feedback by June 30th, those are the types of comments that we'd like to hear from municipalities.
Okay. I guess I was looking for best practices elsewhere.
Best practices elsewhere is that there's one rule, it's clear and consistent,
Okay.
and that tends to not be exemptions or designated smoking areas.
Okay, thank you for that. Other questions by councillors? Thank you very much for your presentation. I guess the final question, you talk about next steps and you're looking forward to feedback by the end of June. In what way are you hoping for that? Resolutions from particular councils, et cetera?
The regional clerk has asked basically for any feedback, comments, concerns, we're not asking for approval of the bylaw, but
Yeah.
support in writing to the regional clerk.
Okay. Thank you very much for your presentation. I do have a motion, and that has been moved by Councillor Ribbiak, seconded by Councillor Accursi, that the information presented by the Niagara Regional Public Health, Chronic Disease and Injury Prevention Department regarding the proposed Niagara Region Smoke-Free Outdoor Spaces bylaw be received. Just to that, members of council, if we want to provide feedback, I don't know whether we do or don't, but if we do, you know, I would look maybe for an amendment now that it could be something that we could discuss at our committee of the whole meeting or our policies and priority meeting in June. So I'm at your disposal in terms of what you would suggest. Is there a motion to that, an amendment? Councillor Papp, did you want to?
Yeah, I'd like to move that. I think there's a lot more discussion and, I'll say direction that we need to discuss.
Okay.
There's several things that have come up that I don't want to take any more time, but there are areas that you have, that the presenters have opened up that we need to get clarified. And if we're gonna support something like this, then we need that time to talk about it.
Okay, so
So
let's
I'll
do it
move
at our committee of the whole
Committee of the
meeting,
whole?
because then
Mr.
we can
CEO?
endorse
I
it in
think so, that would be
council at
good.
our
Okay.
second meeting. So we will, so the amendment is to the committee discuss it, committee of the whole meeting
The
at our June 3rd meeting.
Yep.
Is there a seconder for that? Councillor King? Any others to that amendment? Going to call the question on the amendment. All those in favor? Any opposed? That amendment is carried. And now to the main motion as amended. Are you ready for the question? All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried as amended, and we'll look forward to that discussion on June 3rd at our committee of the whole meeting. Thank you so much for your presentation. We greatly appreciate it, and thanks for your work on this. Thank you. Next, we have a delegation, and that is by Mr. Evan McDade regarding our 2012 audited report. Deloitte and Touche and Corinne Kraus. Thank you, but I believe the treasurer wants to speak very briefly, I'm told, in advance of their presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I'm pleased to have Evan McDade and Corinne Kraus here representing the audit firm of Deloitte. Shortly, they will present the audit results to council for 2012. In advance of this presentation, I just want to take this time to discuss the final 2012 results from the operating surplus to council as presented in this draft financial statement. Firstly, I'd like to recognize the work that was done by staff in completing all of the audit requirements. There are many staff throughout the whole organization that are involved and assist in preparation of working papers and supporting documentation for the auditors, and I want to thank them for all their hard work in making this audit one of our best so far. In addition, a special thanks to Kate Hanna, who just recently started with the town, but took the reins and coordinated and completed the audit within the established timelines. And she did an amazing job working with the staff and the auditors to complete all of these requirements for tonight. So thank you, Kate. And now on with the financial results. Council received a copy of the 2012 year-end financial report on their agenda package tonight. I would like to note that the financial audited surplus did not change from that projected at the report that was given to council on March 22nd, 2013. At that meeting, council approved the surplus distribution as follows: $20,000 to the Welland Hospital Foundation, $25,000 to the CIP contribution, and $57,701 to Working Funds Reserve. In summary, the transfers reflect an in-year financial surplus for 2012 of $102,701. You will note that the surplus reported in the financial statements, however, on page 13 of the document is just under $4.8 million deficit. And this, to clarify this deficit, this is the consolidated deficit, and it includes capital projects. And those are capital projects such as construction in progress projects that are not yet funded. There are reserves or revenues that are associated with those projects, and they will be funded in the future. And these are referred to as CIPs or construction in progress assets and do not reflect a consolidated true deficit. And this will be further explained by Evan McDade, and I will now call on Evan to present the financial results.
Thank you, Ms. Kupel. Mr. McDade, if the treasurer hasn't stolen part of your thunder. There we go.
So as the treasurer has indicated, we have completed our audit for the year ended December 31st, 2012. Our primary responsibility as external auditors is to express an opinion on those financial statements, and those financial statements, the draft ones, are included in your council package. Our opinion will say that the financial statements present fairly the financial position of the town at December 31st, 2012, and the results of your operations for the year ended. Now, it's a very small opinion, but there's a lot of work that goes behind that for allowing us to actually issue that opinion. And that's what I want to talk to tonight. So what I'm going to go through in the next few minutes is I'll talk about the audit findings. In conducting our audit, we look at particular areas of audit risk and reporting specifically on all the areas of risk that we looked at for the town of Pelham and the conclusions that we had thereon. And in addition to that, one of the responsibilities as the external auditors, in addition to issuing an opinion on the financial statements, is to report back on the qualitative results to the body that has the results for or has the responsibility and fiduciary responsibility for financial governance. And that, in the case, is the council, and that's why we're reporting that here tonight. So the audit findings, first of all, we issue what we call a clean opinion, and I've just indicated what that would be. We do conduct our tests and look at the evidence and the results of the audit in context of materiality. Materiality is the extent of the financial statements could be misstated before it would cause users of the financial statements to make an inappropriate decision. The guideline that we use for that is about 2% of your budget, or $310,000. Now, if there was as a way of further explanation, we really would consider any amount of greater than 10% of materiality, or $31,000, if there were any unadjusted errors that would cause us concern as to think whether or not the financial statements do present fairly your financial position. As we'll see, and I'll mention probably once or twice more in the presentation, in fact, there are no unadjusted differences. So the information that's presented to you does present your financial position and your results of the operation at December 31st, 2012. We did conduct our audit in accordance with Canadian Generally Accepted Auditing Standards, and this allows us to issue the opinion, which will be the clean one which we've indicated. In December, we did present, although I was not here to present it in person, but there was a document that was presented to council which had our audit plan, and there were no changes to the audit plan. There were no changes in the way we conducted our audit to what was presented previously to you. The status of our audit. There's 3 bullet points there, but I'll perhaps go a little bit higher than that. There's really only one piece of information that we're waiting for, and that is the financial statements of NPEI. And we were here last year. It was the same situation. Those statements will be following at some point in the future. When they receive those, then the financial statements can be finalized at that point. But that's the same as it was last year. And I would further say to that, even with that, the impact on what you've already seen would really be quite insignificant. There are 3 other pieces of information that are to be received, but basically what has to happen is when council approves the statements, when they are in fact in their final form, our audit is complete and those things come off the table. The related party transactions were properly reported in your financial statements, and we want to ensure that the council is aware of that. The significant accounting policies used for your financial statements are set forth in the note 1 to the financials, and they are the accounting policies that are appropriate for municipalities in Canada, and they follow Canadian public sector accounting standards. Management's judgments and accounting estimates. In any set of financial statements, there's always significant management judgments and estimates that need to be made. And the estimates are always based on the best available information that we have at this time. Subsequent information could either confirm or dispel those estimates, but again, you have to, in the essence of timeliness, do have to prepare statements on the basis of estimates. We do look at the estimates that are made by management at December 31st, 2012, but further, we go back and actually compare any of those estimates that were made by management 1 year prior, just to give us a baseline to judge the estimates that are made. The ones are all disclosed in the financial statements, and we are satisfied not only with the estimates that are made for 2012, but in fact the ones for 2011 as well. As your treasurer indicated, there was information presented to you in March, and there were no changes to that. As a result of our audit, there were no changes. I confirm that. I would further confirm, in fact, that there was no potential changes that we thought could be made, and suggested that haven't been made. So there's just, there are no potential adjustments, and in fact, there are no adjustments at all. So the conclusion would be that we will issue the clean audit opinion once we receive the financial statements from NPEI. few other items that we want to talk about. We do look at all of the transactions, although we don't retest every one, but we do consider the entire population of transactions that the town enters into, as well as the financial reporting and notes and supplementary information that's attached. But we do take a deeper dive into certain areas where there's perhaps greater area of risk, either because the nature of the transaction would be subject to error, or there could be more management judgment or bias in any of those conclusions. So the ones we took a deeper look at are the accounts payable and accrued liabilities, and we did ensure that cutoff was appropriate and that any estimates for accruals are properly supported. The employee future benefits are calculated accurately and completely. Contingencies, which primarily mean potential lawsuits or litigation against the town. Just the nature of any municipality is that you do receive and are defendants in litigation. We do consider that and the impact that it could have in financial statements, and there's no contingency amounts that need to be reported in or recorded in your financial statements. We do test council and senior management expenses, and they are complete and valid and appropriately supported. I did already make the comments about estimates, and so I won't add to that at this point. One of your most significant expenditures payroll, so we do take a significant and a deep look at those to ensure that the payroll expenditures are properly supported. We look at your procurement process to ensure that your procurement is done in compliance with the town's procurement policy, and it is. We do look at the transfers to and from your reserves and your reserves funds, and any and all were properly approved. The revenue and deferred revenue was properly reported, which means that all of the revenue that related to the year ended December 31st, 2012 was reported in that year, and if any of the funds or revenues that related to the future years was in fact deferred and it was, and it would be shown as deferred revenue on your statement of financial position. And lastly, the taxation revenue, we do ensure that that's been properly reported and properly recorded, and we do confirm the balances with MPAC. Okay. In addition to those areas of risk, there's 22 items here that we report back to the council. And I'll go through some of these, but highlight sort of the key ones. The first two are responsibilities under generally accepted accounting auditing standards, and our audit plan was included in the document on December the 2nd, 2012, which was provided to council. The management judgments and estimates were properly estimated, and we're satisfied with those, and I've already spoken to that. There were no financial statement adjustments required, and in fact there were none, as I indicated. There was no uncorrected misstatements that are potentially still pending. The accounting policies are the ones that are appropriate and reported in your statements. Just going on to highlight some of the the other important ones. As an external audit firm, it's incumbent upon us to be independent of the towns that we audit, otherwise our ability to issue an opinion could be impaired. We were independent of the town of Pelham throughout our period of engagement and period of retention, so therefore there was no undue influence on us to issue our opinion, which is the clean opinion. So the summary of all of those is, is there anything as external auditors we feel that the town council should be aware of that they wouldn't have otherwise been informed of? And in fact, there are none. As your treasurer indicated, this was a very clean audit from their perspective, and I certainly reiterate that. It went very smoothly, and perhaps at this time I'd also like to thank your treasurer and deputy treasurer and your finance team for allowing us to sort of get to this point in a relatively smooth and easy landing to be here in May to be able to report this to council. So those are the comments that we have as external auditors, and if there's any questions you have for us, we would certainly like to take them at this time.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much for your presentation and for your comments, for your opinion. Questions from members of council regarding the audited financial statements and the presentation that we received? Councillor Path?
Just quickly, thank you very much, through you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. McKay, but just maybe the treasurer or the CAO can help me. On page 12 of the audit, it mentions employee benefit liability. Are those still outstanding amounts that we are obligated to pay? Is that what that means?
Do you want me to take this one?
It talks about, you talk about the benefit, the vested sick leave was paid out, and there's still an amount. What exactly does that represent? If you
This
could help.
represents a liability for staff members that,
Current.
that are currently employed by the
Currently,
town.
but all the others have been paid.
Yes.
We are not obligated to any former vested things.
The vested sick leave benefits, no, that would be for current staff only.
Yeah, just and again, just if I may, Mr. Mayor, just
Yes,
another
please.
quick question. In the library trust fund, and maybe Madam Treasurer, you can help with the CAO, it shows a donation of approximately 32,000. Can just explain to me, where did that come from? Is that a fundraising activity, or was that a donation made?
Those
Via
are
will?
donations, sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor, those are donations made strictly right to the charity fund that are generated by the library itself. We do not take part in that charity
Okay, so-
fundraising.
So that's the gross amount?
That's right.
Okay, that's it. Fine,
Okay.
I'm good.
Thank you. Other questions? All right, thank you very much for your presentation. I do have a motion, and it's been moved by Councillor Durley, seconded by Councillor King, that council receive and approve the 2012 financial statements, excluding the town's equity investment in Niagara Peninsula Energy Incorporated, NPEI, and the auditor's report dated May 21st, 2013, prepared by the firm of Deloitte & Touche LLP, and that the equity investment in NPEI be finalized and included in the final draft of the 2012 audited financial statements. It says here prior to June 3rd for final approval of council. Just regarding that, as the chair of the Power Corporation, we haven't had a meeting, so we haven't approved yet to approve our audited financial statements.
going.
So I'm not sure that we're going to get it for June 3rd. So with the leave of council, can we take the date out? We'll get it to you as quickly as we can. Certainly, we'll try and get it for that second meeting in June. So if we can take that date out, is that all right by members of council? So that it reads in the final draft of the 2012 audited financial statements for final approval of council. You wanted the date in, Councillor?
Carry on.
Perhaps the statements of the holding company and their NPI would be slightly more complicated because the power company did sell a transformation corporation, as you recall. So, and that was effective December 31st. So it's a closeout kind of issue and report. So, and there will be revenue attached to that for the town. So as a shareholder, so look forward to that. So any other questions on this? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. As scratched out and amended here. Thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation, and thanks again for your work, Ms. Kraus, as well, for your work on this file and staff. Thank you. Madam Treasurer, you outlined the staff that were involved. Thank you very much. It's good to see a very clean audit, and good to know. I was thinking there's segments of politics that maybe should look at the report in terms of the expenses, et cetera, but certainly nice to see a very clean audit, so thank you very much. Thank you. Report of regional councillor. Councillor Beatty is not here this evening, and I thought he would be here, so I am ill-equipped to provide a report for regional council to you. We'll be sure that we get a couple of reports to you at our next meeting. The committee meeting cycle is just occurring now this week, and so there'll be many things to report to you at that time. I also included here on the agenda a report regarding the E.L. Crosley 50th reunion. As you will recall, Councillor Beatty was the co-chair of that very, very successful reunion. I will give you a very brief report from the part that I participated in, which was exceptional. There was the opening ceremony on the Friday evening, and very well attended, packed auditorium there, and certainly some of the past Principals were present. Members of the Crosley family were there, including Kel Crosley, Mr. Crosley's son, and his 3 sisters, and Mr. Crosley spoke. Mr. Kel Crosley spoke. And there were other speakers, current students, etc. at that ceremony. Very well received opening ceremony, and they showed a wonderful video of E.L. Crosley and the history of it, and again, very well received by the alumni and those present. The next day, I was also present for the renaming and the dedication of the gymnasium. That was rededicated to Lauren Ward. That's the Lauren Ward Gymnasium. Very active and strong member of the faculty there at Crosley for a number of years, very well respected gym teacher, and very, very fitting that the gymnasium was named after Mr. Ward. There were other celebrations that evening on the Saturday. They included a number of Crosley-based bands, and I'm told that it was a wonderful event, similar to Summerfest. What the response was. Sounds like other councillors were there. Councillor King was there and others. And then there was a family day sort of portion on the Sunday that I was unable to attend. But very, very well organized event. Councillor Beatty, when I spoke to him on the Friday and the Saturday, was very, very pleased with the turnout. And they're in the black in terms of the event, which is always important for events, especially kind of one-off events like that. So congratulations to all those involved, to Councillor Beatty as co-chair, and Mr. Butko as the other co-chair, and all the members of the committee that are very, very committed to organizing that, and to the school community as well. Congratulations. Now to other business. Here we go, the adoption of the minutes. It has been moved by Councillor King, seconded by Councillor Ribbiak, that the minutes of the following council meetings be adopted as printed, circulated, and read. One from the regular council meeting on May 6th, and the other from the special council meeting on May 6th. Any errors or omissions in those minutes? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. The next item is consent agenda items to be considered in block. Would any member like to lift any of the items for separate consideration, or shall we consider them in block?
Proceed.
We're fine. Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor King, seconded by Councillor Ribbiak, that the following consent agenda items be received and approved. The first, recommendations arising from the Committee of the Whole meeting of May 6th, and that's numbered 07/2013, and the recommendations from the planning meeting under the Planning Act, and that's numbered number 8/2013. The numbering here is hard to, the date of the public meeting was not it was the 13th, it was May 13th, sorry. Minutes of the Committee of the Whole meeting from May 6th, minutes of the public meeting under the Planning Act from May 13th. And then correspondence items. There are 3 major categories. The first is the Pelham Public Library Board minutes of April 10th. The second, the Summerfest Committee minutes of May 1st. And the third are some items from the Regional Municipality of Niagara. The first is a notice of submission of the terms of reference regarding the Humberstone landfill. The second, Regional Official Plan Amendment 11 for the town of Fort Erie. The third, Regional Policy Plan Amendment 190 Sawmill Golf Course. And the fourth, notice of a decision regarding the Regional Policy Plan Amendment 1, 2011. Any discussion regarding any of the items? Councillor Kersey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had a couple of questions, and I'm not exactly sure who I should direct them to. Fort Erie, the amendment that was brought forward for Fort Erie speaks specifically about having secondary dwelling units within properties in the rural area. And I wondered, and that amendment was to bring Fort Erie's OP in line with the provincial policy plan. And I wondered how we stand with respect to that in light of our new official plan and our zoning bylaws and what have you. Have we incorporated that policy position in our new OP, whereby secondary dwelling units could be undertaken in a rural setting?
It's a good question. I don't know if Mr. CEO or staff, Mr. Jennings, are prepared to answer that. Jennings?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I am not aware of anything that deals with secondary dwellings specifically to the rural area. I know there was some provisions put in for the downtown areas for secondary dwelling units, but I can get that information back to you in a report back.
Thank you. Mr. CEO?
Mr. Mayor, to answer the councilor's question, this is something else also could be contemplated during the zoning process, and as you're aware, we have tendered for a new zoning bylaw draft to be done. It's an area that could be addressed there as well.
Do we need to have that incorporated within our OP though as well? I mean, since we're still in there is some action on the OP, should we not look into that to make sure that it's in compliance with the provincial policy plan?
That is being reviewed, Mr. Mayor, as part of the provincial appeal to make sure that our policies are in line.
Yeah, I think it's, just to your question, Councillor, and then I recognize Councillor Durley. This was a bit of a discussion at committee. I did make the amendment that we send it to area municipalities because I thought that Fort Erie was leading the charge in this respect, and that it would allow us to have the conversation around our table as to whether that's the direction that we want to go in. So that's the first point. The second point is it's under, oh, I just had it here. Under one of the pieces here where it talks about, oh, here it is, the amendment, keeping with provincial objective for providing secondary residential units. So I don't think it's by my read of it, and we can get further information on this, it's an objective as opposed to a thou shall. So it's something that municipalities can do, and I know that we've had the discussion regarding secondary units around this table, and but I don't think it's an absolute requirement, thou must. So I think it's you can do it. So it's a good question to raise, and we can ask about it further to see. It does also talk about, as it says here, the amendment regarding consistent with the town's zoning bylaw. So we'll have to get some clarity on where that fits in, official plan or zoning. The CAO has indicated likely zoning, but we can certainly get some.
So perhaps we could get a report from staff with respect to that and the impact on our community so that we could have that discussion at the COW, perhaps.
Okay. Mr. CAO?
Absolutely, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Councillor Durley, hopefully I haven't stolen any thunder
Thank
from
you.
you.
No, there's no thunder. I seem to recall, Mr. Mayor, a conversation around this table, especially dealing with the agricultural community that employs migrant workers in the summer, seasonal workers, that there is an allowance for these people to be housed in areas of different farms where all this is in place. And I'm not sure exactly the wording or exactly the terms that are there, but I seem to recall that there was some conversation and that in fact there are some allowances for this type of activity, especially the temporary workers that are here for summers helping out in farm endeavors. So if in fact that is the brunt of this amendment, then certainly we have, I believe, at least in policy and practice, allowed this. However, Councillor Kersey has a good point that perhaps it should be in writing as well. But certainly that would be a place to look, and especially those that, as I mentioned, do use temporary migrant workers. So
Okay.
Therein is certainly a spot to zone in, first of all.
So, Mr. CEO, can we add that consideration to, when this comes back to us, looking at that piece? Maybe that's the piece that's here. You can
Yes,
listen to
Mr. Mayor.
that, take that as direction. Okay. Others to that point? Okay. Thank you, Councillor. You had another item?
I have a couple, Mr. Mayor, if I
Okay,
may.
go ahead, sir.
Very brief question with respect to the sawmill issue. I just wondered where we are in the process there. The report from the region alluded to the fact that they've been in communication with the town, and just wondered where we were. This has been going on for a long period of time.
Very long period. Who wants to? Mr. Jennings, are you prepared to?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. We met with the region a few months ago to talk about the timing of this application and the status of it. After a legal opinion on their end, it was decided that this application could go forward because of the Greenbelt legislation that did come into effect. So, like I said, once legal opinion was obtained that this application could go forward, our files were given to the region to handle that application on our behalf. So they're proceeding with it.
Just to fill that in, and it might be in the report here, the application was made to the region prior to the Greenbelt, but it wasn't made to the town prior to the Greenbelt Act coming in force. And so that's why the reason for the legal opinion. Which rules do you look at? So I'm pleased that it's been clarified and that it can proceed. So further questions, Councillor? On that particular one?
This issue.
Okay, let's just see if colleagues around the table have any questions, comments on that issue. Okay, go ahead, Councillor, your next item.
The next question pertains to the next regional report, where their regional policy plan was amended with respect to the regional cultural plan. And it speaks about two specific strategies, strategic actions that are being dealt with under this implementation amendment, but it doesn't expand on what those in fact were. So I was, in light of the fact that we have now are very close to adopting our cultural plan, I just wondered what those implications, what the implications of this amendment were and what the strategic items were that they're dealing with.
Okay, thank you. I guess I'll take that one. I don't have the specifics in front of me, Councillor, and I think it would be best if we were to ask for additional information on this from the region regarding the report. What was essentially happening is that the region, with its cultural master plan of a few years ago, certain elements of enacting that needed to be codified within the official plan of the region. So what those exactly were, I don't know if Ms. Van Ravensway, she's nodding, so I'm kind of looking for her for any additional information on that, Ms. Van Ravensway?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Not at this point, we don't have additional, but we will be looking into it.
So let's get more information on that. Okay, thank you. Others to that? Not that we have anything. Councillor Papp?
Well, I guess just, and I understand the decision, I'm a little confused that they're asking for any sort of appeals of this amendment by June 3rd. Do we have time to be able to comment on those? Or is it something that staff can?
I think maybe the clerk could comment that we normally get circulated on official plan amendments. Mm-hmm. I think that's what it is, as opposed to, they haven't given us any of the meat along with the butter here, I guess. So
Kind of need to know what's in between the two pieces of bread, right?
Yeah. So let's get that information.
I said that wrong.
Well, whatever it is, I understood what you were talking about. So we'll
I'm
make
just
sure
curious as
we get
whatever
that
their
information.
protocol is, that we have the opportunity to comment on those, if in fact,
Yeah, if
whatever
it's
impact they have on our own master plan.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll get that information to you.
Thank you.
Anything else on any of the items under consent? Then I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried, along with that direction regarding the Town of Fort Erie and the official plan amendment at the region. Thank you. The next is correspondence. It's been moved by Councillor Durley, seconded by Councillor King, that the correspondence dated May 14th, 2013, submitted by Bonnie Kroll regarding the lack of parking in front of the CIBC Bank and the location of disability parking be received, and that the correspondence be referred to staff for a response. Discussion? There being none, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Perhaps council can be copied on that response. Madam Clerk. Mr. CEO. Thank you. The next item has been moved by Councillor Ribbiak, seconded by Councillor Kersey, that the letter advising of the resignation from the candidate committee submitted by Shirley Bedard, May 13th, 2013, be received and accepted. Discussion. Councillor Durley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is there a need to replace this person on there? And if so, what is the way in which we would do that? Unfortunately, we have now a vacancy, and perhaps I refer this question through you to Ms. Van Ravensway.
Thank you. Ms. Van Ravensway?
Yes, there is a need to replace Ms. Bedard. And we would be doing that through the clerk's department. There's a procedure that they would be using.
Okay, thank you.
It is a work in progress. Thank you.
Yes.
Yep.
Anything else?
No, it's okay.
So we'll look forward to that. Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. We appreciate the service of Ms. Bedard on that committee. The next item are reports from members of council. I have a couple of reports. The first is the Seniors Professional Golf Association Tournament at Lookout Point. I had the pleasure of attending on Thursday, May 9th at Lookout Point, where it was announced officially that Lookout Point will be holding the Seniors PGA Tournament from August 7th to 9th. This is the PGA Canada Seniors Championship. Present at the launch of this prestigious event were Ron Spittle, who is a Niagara Falls native, and certainly Lookout is his home course, and he has relatives who live in Pelham. He was also the 2002 PGA Seniors Championship of Canada Championship Tour winner. Also was Gar Hamilton, who's the 2002 PGA Seniors Championship of Canada winner, and two-time PGA Club Professional Championship winner Brian Huddock took turns speaking at the conference and also participating, hitting balls at the event. It is going to be a very prestigious event. Kudos to Lookout for hosting it. The event's coming. There's also a professional and amateurs event that will be starting this on the Tuesday, but we certainly look forward to this event. I've indicated to the general manager of Lookout, if there's anything that they need from a municipal point of view, they certainly can approach us and talk to us about that in terms of logistics. So we haven't heard anything officially on what their requirements might be from the municipality, but they are certainly looking for a great crowd to attend. I'm told that it's going to be a free event for individuals from the community to attend, and they expect quite the crowd coming up on the 9th, which is the Friday, to kind of see the ending of the event. So we look forward to that coming to our community. And congratulations again to Lookout Point. The next report is regarding Niagara Week, which was held just after our last council meeting the week in early May. Niagara Week, of course, is that time when Niagara Region takes issues from the Niagara Region to Queen's Park to discuss them with provincial politicians, but also with members of the administration and the government, deputy ministers, assistant deputy ministers, etc. Very busy Niagara Week in terms of certainly almost 16 different meetings with different ministries, etc. The main issues that were discussed, and we would tend to go through these issues depending on the ministry, but would talk about some of the major issues, included the interest arbitration issue that is still there, and you'll recall that AMO has a position on interest arbitration. Also regarding the Niagara casinos and the property tax assessment stabilization, and we've had that discussion around the table on what the regional government has done. That room was very full when we explained to them what we were doing and why, and asking for them to do something regarding casinos, and also the implications of that reassessment across the region. There's a number of reassessment requests that have been asked from commercial properties in the vicinity of the casino. So there's a number of ramifications from that. So we're looking for assistance from the provincial government on that. Also, an initiative that we are supporting from something called the Industrial Power Cluster in Niagara. It's a group of private companies that are coming together to appeal to the government to try to get a special rate for large industry in Niagara to get a bit of a discount on their power usage. The case was made that we sell power, excess power, to the United States at a discounted rate of 3 cents instead of, and some businesses, and there were specific examples, have actually moved from Niagara and elsewhere in Ontario to go just across the border to take advantage of that rate. So the appeal was, why not give a 2-cent discount for some of the major industry, keep that industry here in Niagara. We'll see how that progresses. Certainly Northern Ontario has a discounted rate as well, and we were kind of appealing on that idea. The region is also working its way on something called agricultural community improvement plans. So just as we have community improvement plans in our downtowns, the region is looking to encourage agricultural incentives to assist agricultural operations. We spoke about the Greenbelt implications, things like not being able to build a fire hall that easily in the Greenbelt and other things. So that was in one of the meetings. Also looking for some funding partnerships for the new 3rd Avenue interchange at Highway 406 and making the case regarding the new Northern Hospital. That interchange was initially budgeted at 12 million, then 18. It's in the region's budget at 18 in long-term funding. It's actually now being estimated about $32 million for that entire interchange because of all the requirements. Many of them from MTO and others. So we're looking for 50-cent dollars for that. Also, and I guess the final major one is regarding the NGTA, the Niagara to Greater Toronto Area highway corridor and the Highway 406 expansion. So talking about that expansion and linking, the first step in that is to link the 406, i.e. the 140, to the QEW in Fort Erie, and work is progressing on that. So there were presentations to the Ministry of Agriculture and Food, Community and Social Services, Economic Development, Trade, Energy, Environment, Finance, Health, Infrastructure, Labor, Municipal Affairs and Housing, Natural Resources, and we had a good presentation there regarding some of the Greenbelt issues, and the Fonthill came. We look forward to some good news on that. Rural Affairs, Tourism, Culture, Sport, Training, Colleges, University, Transportation, and also Ministry of the Environment with Minister Bradley. Finally, Niagara Week, I think, is one of the reasons that it's been beneficial, and certainly beneficial in a minority government, is discussions with other parties. So it's not just the government as well, but we present the exact same material to the other two parties in the legislature. So of course that included Ms. Horvath and Mr. Hudak and their caucuses. So explaining all of the requests there. Some of these things are things that we start. Some of the things are things that we finish. So in terms of report of, it's not just simply a report of these are the accomplishments, but rather it's a work in progress. So that's my report regarding Niagara Week. We have two other councillors to report, and the first is Councillor King.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will report for the Active Transportation Committee, who last met on April the 16th. And at that meeting, a regional marketing planner from the Ministry of Transportation's Road Safety Marketing Office provided a presentation highlighting road safety when walking after dark. To promote this in Pelham, the committee obtained reflective zipper pole triangles, which were handed out at the market last week. The committee continues to receive comments of concern from numerous citizens regarding the pedestrian safety at Pelham Town Square and also at Highway 20. And comments are passed on to staff with regards to that. A recommendation for the type of bike rack and location was put forward by the committee, urging staff to ensure that the installed bike rack does not impede pedestrian traffic, particularly with respect to the addition of patios along Pelham Street, and this was with regards to the patio at Cafe on Main. Thanks were to be extended to Al Manel for the time he took to meet with members of the committee regarding snow clearing on trails, Pelham safety, Pelham street safety, and bicycle-friendly accommodations. The committee is very much looking forward to ongoing communication with Al pertaining to these topics. A member of the committee has provided comment to staff pertaining to the development of East Font Hill and has expressed a strong interest in being involved in the plan of it being a complete streets initiative. This gentleman is passionate about this and will pursue it for sure. The committee again reiterates position of support for the installation of lights at Pancake Lane and Pelham because of the already identified issues and the traffic study report of 2009. It is most concerned that pedestrian cyclist avoidance is taken into account when the decision for traffic lights, for the location of the traffic lights is taken. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your report and for your work. And certainly, thank you for joining as well on the Mayor's Walk, where we talked about and went and walked around and talked about safety. So thank you very much for that last week. Councillor Rubiak, you have a report as well.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's my pleasure to point out that by the time we meet next, the Village of Fenwick will have already celebrated its 160th anniversary. And I have no doubt that we will all have had an opportunity to attend. It's certainly my pleasure to extend, on their behalf, an invitation to you, Mr. Mayor, our colleagues, and indeed to everyone within earshot of this meeting to come to the village of Fenwick on June the 1st. At 10 o'clock a.m. and from there throughout the day to help celebrate indeed the 160th anniversary of the village, but also to participate in a rededication of the flagpole, now refurbished and in all of its glory and height. To participate in those festivities, there will be music under a tent throughout the day. There will be a variety of activities along Canberra Road, a lot of fun to be had, and of course those who either remember or who have heard the legend of the 150th, people know that Fenwickians know how to celebrate. So this is not an event to be missed by anyone. It's my pleasure in this report to bring this to everyone's attention, and I hope to see you all there Saturday, June the 1st.
Thank you very much, Councillor, and thanks to your work on that committee. I know you're there as well involved, and to all those that are. And Councillor Kersey, I think, has also attended a number of the meetings and to staff. So thank you. We look forward to a wonderful event coming up on June 1st. We do have some staff reports requiring action, so let's move on to those. The first is regarding Pelham Summerfest 2013. It's been moved by Councillor Kersey, seconded by Councillor Rubiak. The Council received the issue sheet regarding Pelham Summerfest 2013 and that the recommendations contained therein be approved as follows. That for reasons outlined in this report, Council designates Pelham Summerfest as a festival of municipal significance to be held as a 4-day event from Thursday, July 18th to Sunday, July 21st, 2013. That the clerk be authorized to make application for a special occasion permit for the Pelham Summerfest on Thursday, July 18th, Friday, July 19th, and Saturday, July 20th. That the mayor and clerk be authorized to enter into agreements with the 4 licensed establishments within the licensed area to which the special occasion permit applies, those establishments being Massimo's Pizzeria, Zest Restaurant, the Cafe on Main and Wine Bar, and Gelato Village. That the town of Pelham offer no objection to the request from Massimo's Pizzeria, Zest Restaurant, Cafe on Main and Wine Bar, and Gelato Village for their respective applications for a patio extension for the Pelham Summerfest, subject to the following condition. That the selling and serving of liquor to the approved outdoor area shall occur only between the hours of 11 a.m. and midnight on Saturday, July 20th, 2013, and that the outdoor area shall be cleared of patrons by 1 a.m. on Sunday, July 21st. That council authorize a variance to the Town of Pelham bylaw number 3130-2010, being the bylaw to regulate and control noise for the purpose of facilitating the Pelham Summerfest musical venues and outdoor movie night being conducted as part of the event from 4 p.m. Saturday July 19th, Friday, July 19th, until 1 a.m. Sunday, July 21st, 2013. And further, that council authorize the following road closures: Pelham Town Square entrance off Pelham Street from 7 a.m. Friday, July 19th to noon, Monday, July 22nd, and Pelham Street from Regional Road 20, Highway 20, to College Street from noon, Friday, July 19th to 1 a.m. Sunday, July 21st, 2013. Discussion.
That's part.
Andiamo. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, and thanks to the work of the Summerfest committee and staff. Looking forward to a wonderful event with all of its parts to it. There's some new parts, but also some great, wonderful parts of that we've celebrated in previous years. So congratulations and thank you for that. We look forward to it. The next item has been moved by Councillor Kersey, seconded by Councillor King, that the concerns raised in the report entitled Town's Response to Water Wastewater Review Task Force regarding the ongoing water wastewater review be received for information, and that a copy of the Town of Pelham concerns be forwarded to the Water and Wastewater Review Task Force. Discussion. Councillor Kersey, Councillor Gurley.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to thank staff for drawing this up, specifically Ms. Pupo. She certainly reiterates and emphasizes many of the thoughts that we've shared around this table before the study even got off the ground. And we have nowhere to go but lose on this consolidation if it's going to go forward. And I hope we'll be prepared to fight tooth and nail to not allow it to happen. So please keep us informed, and if this council can do anything to make our voice better known, let us know.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Gurley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you, may I also echo great work on that report. I think everybody knows how this table feels about what has gone on here. I'm just wondering if there could be a little more added to our recommendation in that, yes, all of this stuff will go, but sometimes it happens to go in one ear and out the other. I'm just wondering if there would be a possibility that we could request, I could use a union word in demand, but that probably isn't in order when we're talking this way, but request that members of individual municipalities be allowed to sit at the table with this as this review is going on, and I'd be prepared to make this in the form of a motion if in fact I could get support, and add that as a third, that the initiative of a one-tier wastewater delivery system immediately be revised and restructured, creating a committee including representatives from all local area municipalities who can sit at the table and offer valuable input to the study in order to clear up what appears to be a gross misunderstanding of systems and conditions already in place at local level. So I would like to propose that, if I can get a seconder for that, and to ask,
Just some clarity on that. The report does indicate that there are members of town staff on the committee involved in the review, and there's also, I think it's Ms. Pupo and Mr. Mantle, and there's also political representation, different councillors from across Niagara. Now, Pelham isn't represented on the political representation side, so is your motion that a councillor be involved and sit on that task force, or is it that there's other input? So I'm just looking for clarity on it. I think, Ms. Pupo, am I mistaken in my comments? I apologize.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to clarify that the town staff are not on the committee. The task force review team is made up of councillors only.
Okay. So, but there are some from area municipalities, right?
That's right.
Okay.
Notwithstanding the fact that they have given lip service to the fact that we can say something, apparently it has gone unheard, or at least there's no opportunity for municipalities like Pelham to do that. So what I'm suggesting is that, in order for this to go ahead and be best practices for everyone concerned, and that every condition existing be considered when a decision is finally made, that people like Pelham that have gone forward and advanced things to a position would be there. Now, whether it should be a member of council or a member of staff, I'm not sure, but certainly we need to have somebody there to bring this forward, and I'm sure there would be some technical questions as to, obviously they're unaware of what we have here, and in fact, somebody that would be able to say, this is what we're doing, this is how it's working, and this is, what's good about it. So, what I'm saying is a voice there to show these things are progressive, and in fact, the legislation or the review that is proposed is regressive rather than progressive, and I think we need to make this perfectly clear, and that's the intent of what I'm saying here, and I leave it to debate to see whether it should be staff. Probably it should be staff, because there may be some technical questions administrative wise. Politically speaking, I don't think to have me sitting at the table would be any advantage. I think it would be more advantageous somebody who knows the system and what it's doing physically on the ground would be much better to answer any questions that they might have.
Okay. Ms. Pupo, can you just comment? So, Councillor Durley, I'm not ignoring your motion. I'm trying to get some clarity on it, and we could move it, get a seconder for it, and proceed with it. But in terms of my understanding of this, is that we do have some staff on a technical committee. That the councillor is suggesting other involvement, but there is a task force. So, Ms. Pupo, I know you've written this report. Can you just provide a little bit of clarity for us on that again?
At the onset, sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor, at the onset of this review, they had contacted staff, myself and the Director of Public Works from the technical side of the water wastewater distribution system to provide them with information that they could use in the study. And that information included financial information and technical asset PSAB requirements and also the lengths and meters of pipes that we have in the system and so forth. Because our old financial management system prior to the time that they were getting information did not provide them with a lot of the information that they needed. There's a lot of assumptions made about individual municipalities in this study, and those assumptions are the opinion of consultants only and do not reflect any of our opinions. Like, for instance, PSAB, they don't agree with 12 municipalities' PSAB policies. They've created their own. So all of the infrastructure financial requirement data is based on opinions of the consultants. And these are the things that were brought forward to us at the presentation that we argued considerably that we did not agree with probably 90% of the report, and that the report was biased towards a one-tier system at that time. It is my understanding that at the review task force committee meetings that they did not have quorum on several occasions to go forward with certain aspects of it. So our concern now is that this gets to regional council. They're asking for it to go in June, I believe, to regional council, and the report clearly is not indicative of what a cost-saving one-tier environment would provide, because we don't have any proof to show that would happen.
Okay, so, but there is a committee that's overseeing this, is there not? And
Task force working directly with the Niagara Region staff.
And that's, the task force is political representatives,
Only,
councillors
yes.
and regional councillors?
I believe it's 6 regional councillors and 6 municipal ones.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Durley, so to your proposed motion, is representation where? On that task force? On that committee, or in what way?
Notwithstanding the experts that are sitting at that table, obviously something has not been heard. So what the intention of me bringing forward this is to give a voice to say, this is what's happened, you've missed it, can you reconsider? So that is what is behind what I'm trying to say, and I think a restructuring of that, and in light of the information, and perhaps it's hearsay where quorum wasn't met, how could this be proceeding when they didn't have quorum? So, there are some irregularities here that certainly lead me to believe that we could get some better information and some better decisions.
Okay, so Councillor, with that, can you just repeat the the motion again, and we'll see if there's a seconder, and then we can debate it.
And certainly it's open for revision. This was just a thought, and again, the whole intent is to get the information that we do have available at the table. Obviously, it has been either overlooked or missed in some way. And that would be adding a third condition there, and I will give this to you, Madam Clerk, that the initiative of a one-tier wastewater delivery system immediately be revised and restructured, creating a committee including representatives from all local area municipalities who can sit at the table and offer valuable input to the study in order to clear up what appears to be a gross misunderstanding of systems and conditions already in place at local levels.
Okay, thank you. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor, which one? Councillor Kersey, Councillor Powell?
Doesn't matter.
Councillor Kersey, you want to second that motion? Okay. Discussion to that. I know we've had some discussion, but not involving everybody. Councillor Kersey.
I'd like to propose an amendment to that, just adding that this committee be the review committee be restructured prior to the presentation of the report to regional council, so that that committee can be restructured and have an opportunity to review the study and make their commentary prior to it going to the region. Otherwise, there's no point in getting it, because you'll never get the committee restructured.
Okay. I don't know if we need that as an amendment. That's sort of understood, but
If it's understood, that's fine, but
can you, Councillor Papp, you have a concern? Or you want to
Well,
second that
I'm
amendment?
actually not concerned, because I say it with tongue in cheek. They haven't established whether they have the legal authority to do this. And what we have learned over and over and over again is, great, have it the study, whether they had all the information, they didn't have the right information. The bottom line is that if we want to play politics with it, sure, make it a triple majority. Let's see everybody else who wants this. That being said, I would even go further and say, put the study aside, restructure the protocol, and re-examine the whole raison d'etre for establishing this, and gather and regather or re-examine all that information so that we come up with what we think is the best value and option for this, not only for the region, if that's the case, but for all of the us as constituents here in Pelham. And I might add that in discussions, Mr. Mayor, there have been interesting dialogue, mind you, rather informally, from other municipalities that I've talked to who are also supporting our position, who have deep concerns about just the direction this is going. So rather than turning it into a negative, or how might we, how can we change this so that we can stop this? And unless, Mr. Mayor, you can help us, I mean, I'm reading here that they're going to bring a report in June, they're just going to adopt it and say, okay, there's a majority vote, and that's it? We're going to install a one-tier system? I don't think they've clarified whether they even have the ability to do that. And if you don't have the ability to do it, maybe I'm wrong.
No, I believe it's similar to the outdoor
Same as the smoking
bylaw, that a triple majority is required. So that includes 50%, or a majority of regional council, a majority of local councils, and a majority, and that majority of local councils representing a majority of the population of Niagara. So that's the three majorities. So that is required before any steps are taken. As I think Ms. Pupo has indicated, a number, this task force or review task force hasn't met, and haven't had quorum. The director has left, gone to another job, and has a secondment. So I don't see how they can bring it forward in June. But I wouldn't, I think once we're done with Councillor Durley's amendment, I would propose that we also send this to the Public Works Committee or a regional council or whichever, because it could just get buried at the task force. So we want to make sure that regional councillors are aware of this as well, and not just the sits that sit on the committee. Now, to the amendment, it does say immediately, and I would suggest to you that it's understood that that's so that it can be dealt with as part of the review, so that more people get to the review. But if you want to codify that somehow, I'd certainly be open to that. Okay. Mr. CAO, you had a comment?
Mr. Mayor, I'm just wondering if it wouldn't be either an additional option or a preferred method to suggest to council that the study is obviously deeply flawed and should probably be peer reviewed?
Yep.
To test its validity, and that may be an option for council to consider.
I've added something else in addition to the amendment, so we'll look at that as perhaps another amendment. To the amendment that's before us in terms of reconstituting a committee to oversee this with representation from every municipality and to do so immediately. Yes, please, go ahead. No, can you read it, please?
It was moved by Councillor Durley and seconded by Councillor Kersey that a third condition be added, being that the initiative of a one-tier water and wastewater delivery system immediately be revised and restructured, creating a committee including representatives from all local area municipalities who can sit at the table and offer valuable input into the study in order to clear up what appears to be a gross misunderstanding of systems and conditions already in place at local levels.
Okay. Councillor Kersey, are you satisfied that the piece you wanted is inherent in that or not?
Yeah, I think that's fine, Mr. Mayor, but I was just thinking whether we could incorporate the CAO's suggestion in the same motion by adding and further that the current study.
I'm going to take it as another.
You want to do it as a separate motion? That's fine.
Amendment. Councillor Papp, to this amendment?
To the amendment, through Councillor Durley, are you looking at elected representatives from all 12 municipalities?
As I mentioned in the preamble
Matter?
through you, Mr. Mayor, that it may be more advantageous to have a member of staff who works with the program as it is, because there may be some technical questions that need answering, and certainly if I, for example, sat as the person there, if they asked me the question, I would have to say, wait, I have to get back to staff to get the answer, because it's, it's something that's on the ground. So I think to avoid that mid-step, it would be best if, in fact, a member of staff who works with this every day would be a person that would be better able to answer questions on that.
Okay.
I'm fine with that.
Thank you. Anything further to the amendment? There being none, I call the question on the amendment. All those in favor? Any opposed? That amendment is carried. Councillor Kersey, did you want to make the...
I'll make a motion that the regional council be specifically requested to undertake a peer review of the current study immediate. I think that's all that needs to be said.
Okay. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Ribbiak? Discussion to that? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. I also suggested the motion that's before us now as amended suggests that it be forwarded to the Water and Wastewater Review Task Force. Can we amend that recommendation and say, and to Regional Council? I think that'd be a better way to do it. So Councillor Ribbiak, you'll make that amendment?
I will. I'd like to stretch that a bit further as well.
Go ahead.
I was going to make the suggestion that we also circulate this to all of our brethren within the region and make sure that there is general knowledge across the region among municipalities that we have this concern and that this may inspire them to do something similar.
Okay, so and to Regional Council and other area municipalities. How's that, Councillor? And other local municipalities? Local area municipalities. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Kersey will second that amendment. Discussion? Good idea. Going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? So that amendment is carried. Any further amendments? Okay, there being none, are we ready for the question for the entire piece? I'm going to call the question on the many times amended motion. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried as amended. Thank you. Thank you all. Thanks for the motions. Unfinished business. By Councillor Kersey, seconded by Councillor Durley. The council received the report entitled Road Allowance Closure and Disposal tree investigation and continue with the closing and disposal of the unopened road allowance between lots 19 and 20 in concession 10 from Foss Road to approximately 500 meters north of Foss Road. Any discussion regarding this? Certainly appreciate staff looking into it and convening the meeting with the interested landowners. Communication is always a good thing. Going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Next is presentation consideration of bylaws. Do we have the bylaw here for friendly? Okay, thank you. It has been moved by Councillor Ribbiak, seconded by Councillor Kersley, that leave now be given to introduce the following bylaws and dispense with the reading of the bylaws. 1, being a bylaw to designate the Fenwick flagpole. 2, being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 1136 as amended, and that's regarding Sobeys. 3, being a bylaw to appoint Jordan Mamalidi as deputy clerk for the town of Pelham. The 4th being a bylaw to stop up and close part of the road allowance between lots 19 and 20, concession 10 from Foss Road to 1,657 feet north of Foss Road, Langendoon, Part 3 on 59R 14777. 5th being a bylaw to stop up and close portion of road allowance between lots 19 and 20, concession 10 from Foss Road to 1,657 feet north of Foss Road, Rosinski and Rosinski, Part 2 on the site plan 59R 14777. 6, being a bylaw to stop up and close portion of road allowance between lots 19 and 20, concession 10 from Foss Road to 1,657 feet north of Foss Road, Rosinski, Part 1 on 59R 14777. 7th being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to enter into an agreement with Massimo's Pizzeria, Zest Restaurant, Cafe on Main Wine Bar, Gelato Village for special occasions permit for the Summerfest event. Discussion? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. It's been moved by Councillor Ribbiak, seconded by Councillor Kersey, that the following bylaws have been considered a first time be numbered as follows. There are 7 here. Bylaw 3375, 2013 through to Bylaw 3381 be now considered a second and third time and pass the mayor and clerk. Do sign and seal the same. Any rule of council to the contrary notwithstanding. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. The next item would be to move into closed session to discuss an item, but as is our practice, we generally recess the in-camera portion and convene it immediately following. So that's our committee, so that's the motion. Moved by Councillor Kersey, seconded by Councillor Durley. The council recess the in-camera portion of the meeting and reconvene immediately following the committee of the whole meeting scheduled for this evening. Comments, questions? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. This portion of the meeting is recessed.
Order, Mr. Mayor. There was a motion, an amendment to the agenda regarding the designation of the Fenwick flagpole.
It was involved already.
Oh, I'm sorry, it was.
Yeah,
I missed
the
that.
clerk-
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. The clerk has already
It's there.
gotten ahead of you, and
Okay.
it's included there.
Very good.
Thank you, Councillor. So this portion of the meeting is recessed. We'll take a brief break. Thank you.
And for a copy at the
That
time.
was the first item on the,
Okay.
that I read out.
For things here and this. Okay, good, good. I knew you would have it.
You're doing it on purpose.
Sir Augie came on?
That's just a wonderful way to.
Oh, no, that was for the flat water.
That's for the flat water, so I'm on
Out of the way so you can.
Reconvene our council meeting from earlier. It has been moved by Councillor Kersey, seconded by Councillor Ribbiak, that the meeting do now reconvene to complete the agenda. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. The next item has been moved by Councillor Kersey, second by Councillor King, that the next portion of the meeting be closed to the public in order to consider the following matters under the Municipal Act of 2001 as outlined below. 1, item under Section 239(2)F, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. We'll now move into closed session consideration. There you go. There we go. Okay, thank you. We've now risen from closed session. It's been moved by Councillor King, seconded by Councillor Ribiak. The council adjourn the in-camera session, and the council do now rise without report. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. It has been moved by Councillor Durley, seconded by Councillor King, that leave now be given to introduce the following bylaw and dispense with the reading of the bylaw, being a bylaw to adopt, ratify, and confirm the actions of council at its meeting held on the 21st day of May 2013. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. It's moved by Councillor Durley, seconded by Councillor King, that the following bylaw have been considered first time be numbered as follows. Bylaw 3382 be now considered a second and third time and passed, and the mayor and clerk do sign and seal the same. Any rule of council the contrary notwithstanding. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. It has been moved by Councillor Ribiak, seconded by Councillor Kersey. This regular meeting of council be adjourned until the next regular meeting scheduled for Monday, June 3rd, 2013, unless sooner called by the mayor. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried, and this meeting is now adjourned. Thank you all.
Some good meetings with Karen.
Here's the